Hey everybody, welcome to the Chan's Logic People Project, where we talk about people, the things that make them tick, and all the fun stuff that happens along the way. Today I've got Sean with me. He's a pretty incredible dude, a pretty handsome sailor, and he hails from Active Life Prescribed. Talk about your business and who you are, Sean. Introduce yourself.
It's funny, I've never heard someone call it Active Life Prescribed, but I guess technically that's true. I own a company called Active Life, and we essentially help people from all over the world to get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym. And we also help coaches understand how they can better assess and manage their clients so that they can do the same thing that we're doing for people worldwide, locally in their own community or online if they want to as well. And the way that we got there, I guess we'll probably talk about it a little bit, is through a plethora of mistakes and disasters, literally natural disasters, hurricanes, that kind of stuff. And it was just kind of a titration of what we were doing wrong and recognizing that that's not going to work going forward and replacing it with something that did until we landed on something that we haven't figured out how to break yet. And once we figure out how to break it, we will have a better product.
I like it. And so what segued you into this? So what did it look like as you were growing up, and how did you decide this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to become Dr. Sean and I'm going to take over the world.
Good
Walk
question.
me through this.
So my father was a chiropractor. So I grew up in a household in Long Island, New York. Easy upbringing. I did not have a difficult childhood. I had a great childhood. I never wanted for money or things or vacations. It was good. Life was good. And my father and my mother also never put any pressure on me to be like my dad or to, be successful. There was never a drive in the family. It was just always a drive for me. So I graduated college, University of Maryland. I realized I was not going to be a professional baseball player when I got cut from the team both my freshman and junior year at University of Maryland. So I decided to play softball instead. But I started to be a personal trainer when I graduated, and I trained at the worst gym in the world that I could possibly find. I was cleaning mirrors, fixing selectorized equipment, selling personal training sessions, selling memberships. I even sold a bag of steroids from the front desk. I learned how to do all of that kind of stuff. It wasn't my steroids. I didn't get to keep the money, but it was part of my job to sell whatever the owner told me to sell. So I finished that, didn't like it so much. After like 8 months, I went and started working at an Equinox, where I actually learned how to be a professional personal trainer. They taught you how to create a business for yourself. And eventually, I was really busy, but I was frustrated because a lot of my clients at the time were hurt. And they weren't hurt from me, they were hurt when I got them. That was kind of like my niche, right? I enjoyed working with people who were injured and finding ways around stuff. So I would go to the physical therapy department at the Equinox I was at and ask for help. And they would give it to me, but it never satisfied what I thought really needed to happen. So I said, screw it, I'm going to go to chiropractic school, be like my dad. So I did that. I graduated chiropractic school, and in the last year of chiropractic school, you're in clinic. So you have like 40 hours a week of clinic, and I would work another 40 hours a week at the gym, prospecting, making new clients. Fast forward like 3 years, I didn't want to do it the way my father was doing it. I wanted to run a clinic a different way. I didn't even want to be in a clinic. I wanted to be in a gym. So I found CrossFit Garden City, which at the time was like brand new. It was the middle of 2010. Found CrossFit Garden City. I'm treating patients out of there for cash as opposed to taking insurance at my father's clinic. And I loved it. It was like the people who would listen to what you asked them to do, they would do it. You gave them an exercise, they did it. You asked them to rest something, they did it. You did soft tissue work on them, they responded to it. You told them they got to eat a less inflammatory diet, they did it. And they were paying me cash, $50 a visit. So I loved that. And I said, you know what? I'm going to open my own CrossFit gym and a clinic inside of it. I recruit my buddy, who's one of my best friends at the time, to open a gym with me in Long Beach, New York in October of 2011. I'm like, I'm going to open my clinic next door. You're already running a CrossFit gym in Pennsylvania. You're going to run this one. I'm just going to be your partner. I'll be the business side of it. You be the face and the fitness side of it. Because at the time, I had like a 14-minute friend, and he had like a 3-minute friend. So we got me fit. We opened up the gym. Literally a year later, Hurricane Sandy comes and wipes everything that I own off the map. My clinic is gone. My gym is gone. My home is gone. Everything is gone. And we did not have the right insurances. We had hurricane insurance, which we thought would cover us for a flood brought to the back to the state by a hurricane, but it's not. Apparently, you need flood insurance to cover for a flood, and hurricane insurance covers for wind. Good learning lesson. I decided in that moment that I was never going to be stuck, for lack of a better word, in a brick and mortar business. And I understand the value of brick and mortar. I'm glad that people are still doing it. I just knew long term it wasn't going to be for me. But I also knew that in the meantime, I had to open up a brick and mortar again so that I could have lunch the next day. So we were in the process of expanding to our second location as it was. So we did that. We just opened in a new spot. It got flooded too, but it was a concrete box where the other one was a little bit more complex. So we just started doing, no power CrossFit classes. And that was a phenomenal learning lesson on sales and customer service and taking care of people, because nobody had anything and everybody needed something. And now how are we going to go ahead and ask people to pay us to be a member of our gym when they can't even afford to rebuild their homes? You know what I mean? So I learned that in that experience. And then I knew I had to figure out something that I could do that would allow me to go anywhere at any time. Started an event company called Flex Events. We had Flex on the beach, Flex on the mall, Flex in the city. We put 1,400 people, I think, at an event in Long Beach, New York, and didn't make any money on it. So I'm like, cool, this is fun, but this is not going to be it for me. Then I ended up having a patient in my clinic named Drew Canavero, who at the time was an athlete on the San Francisco Grid League team. And he came in, got treated, because his girlfriend, Chrissy May Cagney, at the time, recommended him in. And he left and was like, this is great, but I need you guys to help me when I leave. So he left and went to San Francisco, and he's like, can you help me? I don't know, we'll try. So we help him while he's away. He gets great results. He says, hey, I have another friend who needs your help. Can you help him? I don't know, we'll try. Help him, he gets great results. And then he's like, I want to introduce you to my friend Mike Caju, who owns a company called Brute Strength with Tommy Hackenbrook and Matt Bruce. Like, okay. So we start working with them, and the first person that they recommend to us is Brennan Fjord, who was at the time having trouble sleeping through the night. We got him to PR his snatch in about 2.5 months, no more shoulder pain. And then they announced they had a team that was going to go to the games. Like, this is cool. Next, they introduced us to Jared Stevens. Then they introduced us to Brooke Entz. And then it just became like people were asking about us because they knew someone who was working with us. And I say us because at the time I had a business partner, Dr. Jeremy Todd, who is my second business partner and friend, who I no longer have a business or friendly relationship with, because I learned lessons along the way about how to communicate and nurture relationships a little bit better. But fast forward to where we are right now, and I believe we're the only company in the world helping thousands of people from 6 continents. I don't know how many countries or states, but I know we're on 6 continents, but we haven't hit Antarctica yet, to get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym. And we are now starting to teach coaches, doctors, physical therapists, chiropractors, you name it, CrossFit coaches, personal trainers, how to do the same thing for their clients, because it's really way more simple than people might believe. It's just not easy.
Yeah, I like it. Pretty solid story. So let's rewind a little bit and go through a couple of things that happened along the way, so hopefully everybody listening can learn from it and enjoy the specifics of the story. One thing I'm interested in learning about is when you were working at Equinox back in the day and they were taught you how to run the business, but they didn't teach you how to essentially keep clients healthy. What do you think was there any sort of clients need to stay healthy platform or atmosphere in Equinox that was encouraged, or at least a course to take or anything like that?
For sure. They had really good continuing education for coaches. They have what they call the EFTI, the Equinox Fitness Training Institute. And they would take coaches through stuff it was designed to help you keep somebody healthy. But I'm the guy who, I'm not looking to compete with everybody else where they're competing. And what I mean by that is every personal trainer at a gym wants to work with the hot chick or the athletic guy. So I didn't want to work with the hot chick or the athletic guy. It's too hard. What's the point? Why am I going to compete with everybody? So I would look for people who had an ailment, and I would try to help them get fit despite their ailment. So what that meant was constantly going to the physical therapy suite to say, hey, this person has frozen shoulder. What's going to make it worse? Because EFTI can't cover that. It's too specific. There's too many conditions. So at least it seemed. That's what we're working with now. But so it wasn't that they weren't providing education. It's that their education was specific to helping people stay healthy and get fitter. And I needed an education on how to work with people who were not healthy or fit to get healthy and fit.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you find the people who really do need the help are the people who aren't already healthy and fit. And so I think it shouldn't be a game of getting those people in a better position. It should be a game of getting people with significant health problems and issues into a position to where they don't hurt anymore, and because they've made that choice and decision to actually work with you to change their lives. And you end up with people who stick with you longer.
Sometimes, I've been working now with Brooke Wells, for example, on and off for 3.5 years. She's pretty elite. Rich Froning now for over a year. He's pretty elite. So you can get people who are really good athletes and who are really fit to stay with you too, but it's just solving a different kind of problem for people.
Yeah, that's right. Performance versus lifestyle and longevity.
For sure.
So as you talked about having a couple of different business partners, and both of them didn't work out necessarily the way you would have liked them to. Talk to me through what happened, and was there bad blood in both of them, or was there bad blood in just one at the end?
So there was never, when I say this, I know that people are going to be like, sure. There was never bad blood from me to them. But I think that that's because I'm the harder person to be partners with than just about anybody else you're going to meet. And what I mean by that is, I think the reason why our partnerships always broke down, and I'm actually 0 for 3. The one in the middle, number 2, I still talk to on a regular basis though. I think the reason why they broke down was because I was never upfront with myself or with them about what my ambitions were for the companies that we were partners in. So what that means is I was making moves for the company that were maybe more risky than either one of them were prepared to make, or more tangential than they understood because they didn't have the same goal that I did. So everything that I would do would frustrate them. What's the point of having a podcast that we started in my office, for example, if our goal is to build a local chiropractic clinic, go out and get new patients? Well, my goal is not to build a local chiropractic clinic. My goal is to build a worldwide company that happens to own a chiropractic clinic as one of its entities. But that wasn't a conversation that I ever had under those certain terms with my partner. So when I would make moves in the direction to get us to that worldwide company, for him, it's like, why are we doing this? This is stupid. We're not full of patients. We have a lot of patients, but we're not full. Do that first. And also, my attention was on growing the online stuff. And he's like, well, I'm seeing more patients than you per hour and per day. And we're splitting the money. Why is that fair? So it's perfectly justified that anybody who's ever been partners with me in the past, that I did not have these conversations with, would feel some sense of resentment in our partnership because I wasn't a good enough communicator to let them know where I wanted to go before they decided to opt in on the partnership.
I think that's a really good point there. And so it comes down to the fact that you have to create a cohesive unit that communicates well together and is oriented towards a common goal. And if we don't build that common goal and we don't talk to each other about it and establish where everybody wants to be, then you ultimately end up with this communication issue and everybody moving in different directions, and then animosity builds.
Yeah, you can't get in a car and be like, hey, let's drive somewhere. And then I want to go to California and you want to go to the town three towns over. You didn't sign up for a 48-hour road trip.
Exactly. You're like, where are you taking me? You're like, where I wanted to go, but I didn't want to go there.
Exactly.
Well, you got in the wrong Uber.
Right. You got in the wrong damn car, bro. Yeah. We're going to California. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Mexico?
Exactly.
So Couple things. I actually noticed the first guy you talked to, Drew, he used to be around here in the Reno area, and I've known him for a long time. I think probably since 2008 when we had the first CrossFit affiliate in Reno, CrossFit Reno.
Yep.
So it's kind of fun to see going from Drew to Brute to the games and working with all these different people and seeing that evolution and really learning. Was this all just people introducing you to new people along the way, or did you have a proactive approach to getting introduced to these people, and how did all that work out?
The general answer to that is yes. I knew I needed to work with influential people if I was going to gain influence. So I started off by working with Dan Tominski, who was a CrossFit Games athlete out of Long Island. I actually asked him if I could come see if I could help him when there was nothing overtly wrong with him. But he was gracious enough to say, yeah, sure, come on. If you can come out to my gym at times that work for me, I will let you work on me. I'm like, perfect. I'll be there. So I would go out and work on him. And I would ask him to make introductions to people for me. And then it became hey, is it cool if I tell this person I work with you if they ask me who else I'm working with? Yeah, sure. So now I have the clout of, I work with a CrossFit Games athlete. Of course I can relate to you. So other CrossFit Games athlete or other influencer. So my sister actually told me, you need to download this thing called Instagram. It's pretty cool and you don't have it. So I download Instagram and then she's like, you need to start, she teaches me how to use it. And she's like, DM this girl. Her name is Chrissy May Cagney, K-May Cags. At the time she had 120,000 followers or something. And I'm like, why? What's the point? So I message her because my sister's smarter than me when it comes to that kind of stuff. She ends up becoming a patient of mine. I'm like, cool, this is an influential person who's now a patient of mine. She makes a post. I gained 1,500 followers in the night. I'm on the map. I'm somebody now. And then, you just ask, hey, do you have anybody who would be valuable for me to work with? Anyone who you think would be valuable for me to know? I want to work with them. She would introduce me to people. And then I'd ask them the same question. And then when I started to get better at it, it would be, I want to work with that person. What's my 6 degrees of separation to that person? Let me meet the first one. Who's the easiest? And that's kind of how I've done things. And frankly, if some of those relationships don't work, I don't get to some of the people because the conversations in between, I don't jive with the people I need to have relationships with, or they don't jive with me. But it's always an intentional approach.
Yeah, I like that. So using the people you know to drive you into the next people you might know, and essentially building relationships to put you in the places you want to be with the right kind of people. And I think a lot of this comes down to relationships. How do you get in front of the right people to have the right product at the right time? And then all of a sudden you have a lot of good things going on, but it's because of the work you did to build those relationships in the beginning.
Sure. And I know how this can sound to people too, especially with the way I introduced myself earlier, someone who didn't communicate very well to my partner and who left 2 resentful partners probably in the wake. And I know that it can sound like, oh, well, he just uses people then. But that's not at all the case. And I want to make that really clear. I think any of the people who have introduced me to somebody else, I probably would get invited to 60% of their weddings right now if they were to have one. And, it's like, for example, Jeremy Kinnick was an ex-Games athlete who came on to work with us. I didn't know who Jeremy knew. I just knew Jeremy knew people and he owned a gym, and it would be valuable for me to do the right thing by him. Lindy Barber gets hurt and posts on Facebook or on Twitter that she needs help. I'm like, hey, Jeremy, do you know Lindy? He's like, no, but I'll reach out to her. Jeremy reaches out to Lindy, says, hey, Sean wants to help you. Lindy ends up working with me. I didn't start working with Lindy because I wanted to get to Rich, but I know Lindy's an influential person who I wanted to help. I've actually wanted to help her since before anybody knew or cared who I was. So now I'm working with Lindy. Everything is going really well, and Rich has some stuff going on. Like, hey, it just so happens Lindy's at his gym. Lindy, would you connect me to him? Absolutely. Now I'm working with Rich Froning. So it's doing the right thing for Jeremy Kinnick, doing the right thing for Lindy Barber, who both now are good personal friends of mine. I've had dinner at my house, have stayed in New York, and I've now been to Cookville to work with Rich and the whole team at Mayhem. We're doing a workshop there. But it's because you develop the relationship in the right way.
Yeah, and that's huge. And anybody who thinks being in business with partners doesn't result in a couple of people being resentful. Hasn't ever been in business before. It's inevitable with partners in multiple different businesses and atmospheres and strategies. But I think the fundamental thing that you did here was you're aware of what you've done, where you've been, and how you got there, and you're also aware that it's all just about building and sustaining strong relationships with each individual person we meet and each individual person that we talk to and each individual person that we make friends with. It's just doing the right thing all the time that introduces you and leads you to the next right thing.
Yeah, and acknowledging when you do the wrong thing. Like I know that I don't know that my ex-partners are resentful. Neither one of them has ever said I'm resentful. I just get that kind of gist. You know what I mean? But I've since called and apologized to my first ex-business partner. I was like, hey, I could have been a better friend. I could have been a better communicator. I could have been a better business partner. And I'm sorry about that. And it's like, yeah, well, look, man, what's done is done. We're not going to be friends anymore. I'm like, I get that. I just want to make sure that you know that I recognize I had some blame here. I've told the second one who I don't have a relationship with anymore, I'm sorry, and he and I agreed. We're both sorry. It didn't work. It's our personalities and we're just not willing to put that kind of work in. But it's recognizing when you make that mistake so that you don't make the same mistake over and over and over again, like I did, unfortunately, 3 times.
That's huge. That's ultimately a high level of self-awareness. I know what I do right. I know what I do wrong. And I'm going to pay attention to those things and use them to move myself forward and repair the things I may have damaged in the past, which is huge. A lot of people don't have the capabilities of seeing themselves in that light or being able to look in that way.
Well, I think that for me, not being successful by my measure of success, financial freedom and social freedom and access to whoever I wanted access to, those for me were the metrics of success in business. That's since changed somewhat, but some of it is still there. Now it's all about impact. I want to impact as many people as possible. But, not having that for so long when I felt like I'm the kind of guy who can and should and is capable of doing great things with it, put me in a really isolated, emotional place where I was like, I'm not living up to who I'm supposed to be, and that does not make me happy. So I was totally game to seek out and pay for anybody who could provide me with help to be a more effective version of myself. And I've paid, I don't know, probably close to $100,000 in the last 2 years, 3 years to get that kind of coaching.
I like that. What are some of the best things you've taken from these courses and this coaching you've received to create that level of impact you want?
So the first coach I ever hired, my father was my first mentor, and he's phenomenal. He still mentors me all the time. It's just that some things you hear from Dad and then you hear from somebody else 3 years later, and you're like, Dad, why didn't you tell me this? I've been telling you that since you're 4, right? You just don't hear it from Dad. But the first coach I ever hired was like, you don't even know why you do this. Of course I know why I do this. Everyone knows I know my why. I've worked hard on this. What are you talking about? He's like, what's your why? I said, I want to change the world, provide for my family, and leave a legacy. He's like, cool. Love it. But right now, Sean, you're making about $40,000 a year, and you're not exactly providing for your family. Could you go get a job that makes you 6 or 7 figures and provide for your family more easily? I'm like, yeah, I've actually been offered jobs that would pay me 6 figures right away. He's like, then get that bullshit about providing for your family out of here. Because you're not making the responsible decision to do that. It's just a line that you tell yourself. He's like, what if they died? Would you quit what you're doing? I was like, no, I'd probably double down, to be honest. And he's like, then stop using your family as a crutch for the reason why you do it, because they're not. And then he sent me on a month-long journey to figure out why I actually do anything that I do, which was a really dark month because it was having to get to know myself in a really, really, really transparent way. So that was valuable, really valuable. Then, what's that? Go ahead.
Oh, walk me through. I mean, the journey of figuring out who you are and finding yourself is something I think not a lot of people like to talk about or ready to talk about. But what did that month look like? That dark month you went through to really figure it out?
Everything. I mean, you name something that you would do if you felt lost, I did it. So call family members, call friends. Hey, you remember when I did this? Why do you think I did that? Any idea why I would do that? What do you think drives me? What do you think I really want out of life? And just having those kinds of conversations over and over and over again with people. I would go for half hour to hour long walks by myself just to think about this specific thing. I would meditate on it. I bought books and I would read them. I would write notes into a notebook that every notebook I ever wrote and I threw out because I didn't like what was in them. I don't even think I ever told my wife I did that. So, and it came down to me like asking why, saying, okay, I think that's it. And then ask myself why again, see if I could talk myself out of it, tell somebody this is what I think it is, and then let them try to talk me out of it. And if I could be talked out of it, I knew I was wrong. And just do it again and again and again and again. Until finally I had to be real with myself. And I landed on the fact that for me, I don't know why, but having power and having control over myself is paramount to anything else in the world. I don't need to control you, but you can't tell me where to be at what time. You can't tell me what room I can go into. If there's a VIP room and I want to go in, I'm going to find a way into the VIP room. I'm going to get a bracelet. I'm going to bring friends in. You can't tell me what I can and can't do. Then I really want to win. Like I hate losing so much. And to the point that I've cheated to win. I'll do anything to win. And I walk into the room at our next meeting with our business coach, and so I don't know what it is, but I feel like I need to be in complete control over myself, and I want to win so bad that I need you to know you lost. Like that's the level of winning that I need to be at. And I kid you not, he pulled out a sheet of paper from his pocket that had power and control with a 1 next to it and winning with a 2 next to it. And I was like, you got to teach me how to do that.
You're like, you're a magician.
Well, yeah, basically, that's how I felt. But his thing was, it's not that complex. I'll teach you how to understand this for yourself and for other people so you can help other people with their own. Like, why didn't you just tell me that? Why did you make me go through a month of it? It's like, because you needed to land on it by yourself. If I just told you, you wouldn't have believed me.
Yeah, you needed that wax on, wax off experience to really understand yourself, understand where you wanted to be, and understand what was going to get you there, and talk to everybody, make notes, and really, it was just that human level of engagement with yourself that a lot of people don't have or get.
Yeah, 100%. And it's something that now, it's one of the first things I teach to all of our staff members. Like in their onboarding, they learn how to do this so that they can have better conversations, more deep conversations with their clients when their clients are going through stuff. Because if you don't know why you're doing something, if you just have a random goal without a strong why tied to it, your likelihood of hitting it is very slim.
Exactly. You got to really, I think the why is one of the biggest focuses that people think they know but don't really understand because they haven't dug deep into it. They just pick something that they think is going to make other people happy, but they don't have enough self-awareness to really dive into them. And yours has to be significantly different than other people. And the deeper you dive, the stronger it becomes and the more you actually believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, power and control over myself and the opportunity to win are very general. Like, what does that mean? It means I want the last word in a sentence. It means, I want to decide where we're going to dinner. It means I want 4 things on the menu, so I'm going to see if I can get 4 people to share with me. It's little things like that too. So, and it's circumstantial. I don't need to win when I play my 3-year-old daughter in basketball in the playroom. Don't need to win that. So it's really kind of knowing who you're around and what you need out of the situation for yourself that will make you happy. And I hear so many people who I talked about it at first, and they're like, "Oh, it's my family. I do it for my family," and they post on their Instagram like my why, and it's their wife and their kid. And I'm with it. Like, that's cool. If it's true, outstanding. But the question I tell people to ask themselves is, what would you do if they died? Would you stop? If you wouldn't stop, then you need to stop propping them up as your why and recognize that they just fit into your what, which is totally different than your why.
Yeah, that's huge. And you always see the Instagram bios and stuff, family first and all these other things first. But when you really dive deep into what the people are doing, they're doing the things that they really want to and need to be doing for themselves that usually is outside what they're I would say, glass case why is. And once you break that case and break that mold, you figure out what the deep, dark reason is.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would jump on a bomb from any of my kids. I'd jump in front of a bullet from my wife, like that. No questions asked. I would give my life for any of them without thinking about it, which is fucked up to think about, but I would.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean I do what I do for them.
Yeah, and it's not because it's not a matter of care. It's a matter of what is my purpose and what is driving me to keep doing these things. These are the things I care about, and these are the things I'm doing to make myself get to the point to where I want to be to feel whole.
Yes.
So let's segue a little bit. Before we started this whole conversation, we talked about the one thing that is kind of your overarching theme, and the one thing that you really look back on, and that's your one sentence to describe the way you feel about the work you do and the people you work with. And your one thing was people who are in pain because they decide to be. So talk to me about that. It sounds like people have to make the conscious, physical, or metaphysical decision to make their own change. Otherwise, they just stay in pain forever.
So before I even get into this, I want to preface it that there are exceptions to every rule. And people who hear what I'm about to say, in large part, are going to be offended by it. And I recognize that before I say it. But that's why it's important that I preface for some people, this doesn't actually fit. But at the same time, the likelihood is, while you're not in your head right now listening to this and saying, yeah, what he's going to say doesn't apply to me, the likelihood is it actually does. Because for most people, it doesn't. I mean, for most people, it does. And that is that if you're still in pain, if you've been in pain for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, it's because you've decided to still be in pain. It's not because you've done absolutely everything in your power to get out of pain. It's because you've decided that being in pain is actually more comfortable than doing what it would take to get out of pain. I don't mean physically uncomfortable. I mean mentally, emotionally, whatever it might be. And an example of that would be for somebody who has back pain that they've had for 10 or 15 years. And they're 30 pounds overweight, and they're like, I've done everything. I've been to the chiropractor. I've been to the physical therapist. I got nerve blocks. I went to the orthopedist. I did everything you could possibly do, except count my macros and exercise 5 days a week, and change my job and move from where I am so I can not live in a concrete jungle, but I can be in a place where I can move around more freely. Right?
That's huge. It's always that except these things.
You did everything except you need to make this much money because you live in this city, which requires this kind of income to live in and requires this kind of travel. You sit in your back hurts because you sit in a car 2 hours every day to work and from work. It doesn't matter what else you do. You haven't decided that your back pain is bad enough yet for you to quit your job and go do something else that doesn't require that. Because it's more painful to think about moving somewhere closer to your work or changing your job or something major in your life that would allow you not to have to do the thing that causes you pain every day. For a lot of people, I've been to the ortho, the chiro, the physical therapist, whatever. You haven't worked with us. You haven't worked with Active Life yet. Well, if the ortho and the physical therapist couldn't do it, how are you going to do it differently?
Yeah, that's huge. And I think this comes down to, on top of what you're saying, is it's the short-term versus a long-term mindset. How can I figure out a short-term fix that's not going to give me a long-term gain versus what is the ultimate factor that I can do to make this go away forever? Most people stay so closely into that short-term mindset. They say, okay, if I see a chiropractor once a month, that'll fix it. Or if I just take these pills, that'll fix it. Or if I get this donut to sit on, that'll make my back pain go away. But they're not figuring out what the fundamental level of the issue is and how to fix that so it doesn't come back.
Yeah, I mean, my mom is a great example. I love her. Phenomenal influence on me, extremely smart woman, loving, great, awesome. I love everything about my mother. Well, 99% of things about my mother. She had Achilles pain for 3 years. I would work on her, but she didn't consistently come to her appointments. I'm like, you got to do exercises. Here's your exercises. She would inconsistently do them. So, okay, her pain went down to 50%, and only when she did certain things did it hurt her at all. Great. That's a great step forward. But we couldn't get past that. Finally, she decided to cut sugar out of her diet for other reasons. She cut sugar out of her diet, and her Achilles pain went away 100%. Totally gone. She hadn't tried that before. You don't
Yeah, and
know
that's
what.
huge.
Yeah, you don't know what the thing is going to be. She was living in such an inflamed state. We sent her to a functional medicine doctor. Functional medicine doctor was like, "You need to change your diet." She changed her diet because he basically said, "You're going to die if you don't." I know my mom's not a fat woman. You wouldn't look at her and be like, she's unhealthy. She's a pretty lady. But he was like, "You're inflamed. You're going to die if you don't change your diet." That was scary. So she changed her diet, and her Achilles pain went away. It's the only thing that changed.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that's a huge disconnect in the healthcare world, where people don't understand that by changing one fundamental aspect of their diet, it can change the way they feel in their head, the way they feel in their body, and all the other problems and ailments that they suffer from. They don't make that connection. They think it comes down to something that has to happen in that specific environment, and it could never be something outside of it. And I think that's why nutrition sometimes gets pushed to the side. It's, oh, my shoulder hurts. What can I do? Oh, I have to get shoulder surgery. Well, maybe we should work on the level of inflammation and work on that pain maybe going away through that way. And so I think that's a huge disconnect that we see. Things can be fixed outside of the things that you're trying to fix them in the ways you're trying to fix it.
Yeah, and even to go beyond that, it doesn't even have to be nutrition. It's just the person gets overlooked. Something as simple as, we tell our clients when they come to us, I interview everybody before they come in. Myself or one of our staff members interviews to make sure that you're a good candidate. We turn away 35% of people who come to us for help because they're just wrong. We're not going to be able to help them. We don't want bad reviews. And we don't want to waste people's time and money. But so people will come in, and one of the first things I train my staff is nobody is allowed to say that they have a bad anything. I have a bad knee, bad shoulder. No, you don't. You have a shoulder that needs to improve in this range of motion. You have a knee that needs to get stronger. You have a knee that needs better range of motion. Whatever it is, that's the conversation. Like, it's something as small as that. People start to feel better before they get their first session with their coach because their self-talk is cleaned up. But the way that it works right now is when you go to a doctor's office, you don't get the opportunity for that kind of quality to occur because the insurance company has trained the doctor that you got to be in and out of that room in under 7 minutes, no matter what your profession is. And you can't do anything in 7 minutes. And people are like, well, I pay $1,000 a month for my insurance. I'm certainly not going to pay $1,000 for a doctor's appointment on top of that. It's like, well, do you want it to work, or do you want to just go there and throw $50 of a copay away? What are you looking for?
Yeah, that's huge. It's like, what is your ultimate level of success in this? Do you want this all to go away, or do you just want to keep going back and then eventually give up and say, well, I tried everything and I think my shoulder just is terrible. And
Exactly.
you brought it down to self-talk, which is huge. It's not that I have a bad shoulder. It's, hey, my shoulder hurts. I'm going to look at a way to fix it, and I'm going to see who can fix it in the best way to make sure that this shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with me. There's just something that's not working right in my body right now.
Yeah, instead of I have a bad shoulder, say my shoulder needs to improve. Watch what happens to everything else in your life. It's insane.
Yeah, that's huge. And that works not just in the shoulder, the physical health. This is huge for people in their mental health. We have such a huge rate of depression in the world right now. And it's because people don't fundamentally have that level of self-talk. They can't teach themselves how to speak to themselves in a way that's going to make them feel better and not worse about what's going on.
Well, again, it's because people, in my opinion, people identify with their words, and when they say they have a bad shoulder, it's like somebody gave them a bad shoulder. It's not their fault. It's the same as when someone says, hey, it's not all about the money. Like, no, it's not all about the money. But if you don't make any, you can't help anybody. So you have to understand that at least some of it's about the money. It's you tried your best, and that's all anybody can ask for. Yeah, except the person who's going to hire someone who did it better than you. They can ask for more than your best. We tell ourselves these things so that we don't feel bad about not achieving, instead of telling ourselves the truth and recognizing that that is the ticket to achieving what we really want to achieve.
Exactly. And it's coming down to the concept of rationalization. You're rationalizing why you're not capable of doing something or why it's okay that you didn't do it. And the point of rationalization is teaching yourself that what you're doing is okay. If you're average and someone else was better, you tried your best, so it's okay. And we always have to try to get into this state of okayness. But what we could really do is stop the rationalization and say, well, maybe I could have stepped it up a little bit. Look, the other person did these 3 things, and maybe I could have jumped in and did these 4 things to make it even better than what they did. And I think that's the process of constant self-improvement as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite people to learn from is, his name is Jesse Itzler. He founded Marquis Jets and sold it to Warren Buffett and NetJets when he was like 27 years old, something like that. I could be wrong, but it was a young age. He started and sold Zico water to Coca-Cola. He married Sarah Blakely, who owns Spanx, and he now owns the Atlanta Hawks. And what he talks about is the idea that when you think there's nothing left to do, when you think that like that's it, that's the end, there's nowhere left to go, I'm done, I've given everything I possibly can to this. If you can take a pause, separate yourself from that moment, and recognize that that is where everybody else quits too, if they even made it that far. And that if you go just a little bit further, if you figure out the one more thing that you actually can do, but it's really, really, really difficult, that's where all of the wins are. All of them.
Yeah, that's huge. It's where can I step up my game, or where can I put myself 10 times beyond what I thought I could have done, and how can I set myself to achieve that, and to say, that's going to be really difficult, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. This is the route that's going to make it work. And I used to have a mentor back in the day who had this concept of the brass ring. You set your ultimate brass ring of what you wanted to achieve, and then you set little minor rings along the way, and you step on each rung to get to where you wanted to be, to your ultimate high-level goal of taking over the world, or whatever your goal was. But you had to set yourself up with these micro pieces to get there, and to make sure and understand that it wasn't going to be easy. It was more than most people were willing to do, and you really had to step up to obtain your brass ring.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite metaphors, I like the brass ring, one of my favorite metaphors that I use with athletes who I work with, I was having, I don't know if you know who Christine Andali is, but she was pushing a sled on concrete. I didn't write the workout for her, somebody else did. But as she's pushing it, I started to recognize that it was a really good metaphor for life. She's pushing a sled on the street, and there's cracks and divots and stuff like this in the street, right? So the sled would get stuck, and she would stop when the sled got stuck and be like, stand up and be upset. And I was like, I'm going to let her finish this, and when she's done, I'm going to talk to her before her next round on the sled. She comes back for her next round on the sled, and I said, Christine, before you start pushing the sled, I want you to recognize it's going to get stuck. You're going to hit a spot where the sled gets stuck. If there were a bunch of people here pushing the sled with you, they would stop because the sled got stuck and they didn't expect it. So they don't know what to do. If you anticipate that the sled is going to get stuck and push through it, the sled is going to slide immediately after that, and you're going to get ahead. And she didn't have to take breaks after that. And to me, that's a metaphor for anything that you're doing in life, because if you think it's going to be easy, when it gets hard, it's over. You stop. But if you anticipate the stopping, you can push through it.
Yeah, that's great. It's the concept of understanding, like Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will. So plan for it. Plan for the problems. Plan for the issues. Plan to go to plan C or plan E or plan F. And understand that plan A is never going to be the one that works out. So you're going to go on this long, windy road to get to where you need to go. Most people quit because they weren't ready for that. But if you're ready for that, you're prepared for those problems and issues, and you're following the sled crack mentality, you're going to get yourself into a position to where you can go far beyond what anyone else can do, just simply because you thought about it, and simply because you put yourself in a mindset that it was going to happen. And that's one of the biggest things, is priming that mindset to prepare you for the worst.
Yeah, it's a mindset of certainty. I will win eventually. Not, oh man, I wonder if I just lost. Like, no. I definitely just lost. But I'm going to win eventually. So I have to keep going because I haven't won yet.
Exactly.
That's it. That's certainty.
That's huge. And that's, you know where you're going to get, you screwed up a couple times, and you're like, yeah, I did screw that up, but this is where I'm going to get to where I need to be. And that's how you ultimately win, understanding that it's never a straight line. It's never easy. It's never something that you just wake up and you're successful. The successful people went through a lot of trials, tribulation, tragedy, issues, and problems to get to where they wanted to get, and they just didn't quit, and they kept moving forward. They understood what was going on, and they made plans of action around the issues.
Mm-hmm. And that takes me kind of to, it's actually a decent segue for the second thing that you asked. What is the other big kind of phrase that I live by? And it's that if you want to be world class, you have to prepare to be unrelatable. And what I mean by that is there's not that many people who are world class. So if you get to be world class at something, you can't expect anybody who is not to relate to what you had to do to get and stay there. You're going to have to do things that other people are unwilling to do, that other people will never understand in order to get there. And for most people listening to this, I imagine that most of your listeners are fitness conscious. So you look at all of your friends and colleagues and coworkers who are not in good shape and ask yourself, do they think that you're a little bit crazy for the things that you do for fitness? And the answer is probably yes, and you're probably not world class at it. So imagine what they would think if Rich Froning walked into your workspace and treated himself the way that he treats himself. They would not relate at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's huge. And when you want to be at that level, it's the level where people think, wow, I have no idea what he's doing. He's insane. He does whatever he wants. I don't understand fundamentally what's going on or how he's so good at what he does or how he has these processes that put him in a position to where he's always on top of the game or he's always winning or he's always doing these things right. And you set yourself up to where you're tip of the spear. You're at the level to where people would say untouchable, but you're not untouchable. You just put yourself in a position to where you went far and beyond what was even possible or capable or what people were even asking for. And it's the concept of defying logic and defying the physics of it all.
Absolutely. Over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's big. And you look at this, it works in fitness. It's a concept in business, investing, life. The people who you look up to and the people who you could never hope to relate to or you think you could never reach or get near are the people who did that, the people who obtain that high level of I can do whatever I want and obtain that position to where you don't understand how they got there. Those are the people who ultimately followed the processes that we talked about today and followed this lifestyle of certainty.
Yeah, they know eventually they're going to be there because their life doesn't end up any other way.
Exactly. They know it's going to go there. They know they're going to have problems, but they're going to get it. Most people are going to quit along the way, and the people who are quit are going to be the ones who look up to those people and say, wow, that's insane. I don't know how they could have ever done that. And what they don't realize is they just weren't in the right mindset to get there.
Yeah, look up to them or resent them. You know, look at someone, oh, well, if I had his genetics and I lived in Cookville, I could have drank that water and had that kind of free time and all that extra money that I didn't have to spend on my apartment. Bullshit.
Yeah, and don't hedge. Don't say, oh, yeah, he had all these things. And don't say, oh, I have a full-time job. I could never do that. Well, at the beginning, he had to do that stuff too. He was just this skinny 150-pound guy who was running around at the, 2013, 14, 15 or whatever CrossFit games. And eventually he just turned himself into a monster because he was relentless and just kept pursuing that excellence and pursued that level that nobody else was willing to work for or obtain. And so if you make the excuse that they have these things, you're coming back to rationalizing to yourself why you can't obtain it and trying to make it okay.
100%. And I think he won the first time in 2010.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
think it was the year after he fell off the rope.
Yep, 2009, I think he fell off the rope.
Yeah. So many years, they all just fold back into one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this has been a really good podcast. We touched a lot of great topics, and I think people can get a lot of value out of this. But if people want to get a hold of you and get more info about what you're doing and Active Life, how can they do that?
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell them. I'll be straight with everyone who's listening. If you're in pain and you want to get out of it and you don't want to go to the doctor and you don't want to miss the gym, I want to talk to you. And you can find us at activeliferx.com or at activeliferx on Instagram, activeliferx on Facebook. If you type activeliferx onto a keyboard, you're going to end up finding us somewhere. You can also find me personally, Sean Pastuch, on Instagram at Sean Pastuch. And on there, I kind of talk about what it takes to go through the back side of the business to develop as a person in order to develop as a business person. So that's the best way for people to find us.
Perfect. I love it. I will include these links in the show notes as well. Thanks again for coming on, Sean. And I think it was a great conversation. All of you guys should listen to this, email questions to myself, send questions to Sean, and really dive deep into your level of consistency and your why.
Yeah, I would love to, you don't have to pay to ask questions. I would love questions. Dr. Sean at activeliferx.com is my direct email. I respond to all of them. I'm not giving out my cell phone number, but that's where you can email me. And I would love to help you guys if you need it.
Perfect. Thanks again, Sean. And that is all she wrote. I will see you guys next week with the next episode. I hope you have a great day. And thanks again, Sean. That is it. See ya.